Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. I recently had an interesting discovery flying around Giga Texas about the Cybertruck, and on the 24th of July, you may recall this display of Cybertrucks, particularly the one in black. Also, on my 26th July video, I passed that same Cybertruck by the 4680s. Here it is in slow motion. As is my custom, after flying, I post pictures on X, and this particular one got a very interesting response. As you can see, Bonne Eggleston wrote, "Nice shot of the Dry Cathode Cybertruck," with a winky face, almost as if they were hoping that I would capture the pictures of the Cybertruck. I responded back that I was able to capture it 2 days before on Wednesday next to the Cybertruck graffiti trailer. Now, the interesting thing is Bonne Eggleston is the senior director of Tesla's 4680 program. So this wasn't just a happenstance posting. It was very exciting, and that also prompted some additional questions that came out of the Q2 2024 financial meeting, where they talked about in July they entered validation of vehicle testing for the first prototype Cybertruck produced in-house with Dry Cathode 4680 cells, a major cost reduction milestone once ramped. Now, that also goes along with this response on X from Yogi Bear saying, "Hey, is this imported dry cathode material or is it produced here?" And Bonnie responded back, "It's fully made by Tesla and our mass production scale dry electrode machines." So all of this response really deserves a much deeper analysis, and that's what I will do today. On the right-hand side of the screen, I've indicated where the 4680 battery cell production portion of Giga Texas is located. I will also be deriving a lot of the information from Kelvin Yang, who did a very good deep dive article on X about 4680 production at Giga Texas. Jordan from The Limiting Factor, who everybody should know does a lot of great information about batteries and the technology with that. And James Ma, who had some additional information about the overall 4680 production process. Here's a quick summary from Battery Day held a few years ago by Tesla, and we'll talk about the 4680 dry cathode battery and why it is so important. We'll start with increased energy density. It has a larger diameter and height compared to previous 2170 cells. This means that the battery can store more energy in the same volume. Another key benefit is cost reduction. The image on the right shows the difference between a wet process and the amount of equipment and factory size you would need versus a dry electrode. It's about a 10-time footprint reduction and 10-time energy reduction. It also eliminates the needs for solvents, and it reduces environmental footprint for the battery production, which also reduces cost. The potential for improved performance is another key factor for the 4680s, and this is partly because of the increased energy density and also the use of advanced materials within the cell construction. Although not directly related to dry cathodes, the battery pack using a 4680 is a structural battery pack, and this means that the cells themselves contribute to the strength and rigidity of the pack, makes for a lighter, more efficient vehicle. One of Tesla's goals is to achieve cost parity with the cheapest battery suppliers by the end of 2024. The emergence of this Cybertruck and what Bonnie said indicates that they are on track to achieve this. And of course, this indicates that the ramp of 4680s is continuing at a great rate, and that Tesla is planning to start mass production of the dry electrode 4680s by the end of this year. To summarize, the 4680 dry cathode battery cell is a significant advancement in battery technology, has the potential to improve the performance, cost, and sustainability of electric vehicles Tesla will produce, starting with the Cybertruck. At the beginning of 2024, Tesla did attempt to do mass production of the dry cathode 4680s, but they ran into several technical challenges with the calendaring process. Now, that is basically large rollers like you see here in this image that will roll out the dry cathode material into kind of ribbons that are then installed into the can to make the batteries. Now, even back in 2022, Tesla knew that this would be a problem, and you can see by this quote from Elon Musk, "The dry cathode process encountered significant challenges. The cathode powder is very hard, sometimes damaging the electrode equipment, which we did not anticipate. Now, Tesla had thought that they had that resolved by the beginning of this year, but that turned out to not be the case. One of the battery engineers here at Giga Texas mentioned that they only had a few customized and tuned dry cathode rolling machines, but the machines kept breaking down, and each time they did, it took at least 45 days for repairs. Of course, that meant that the battery team was wasting a lot of time during that process. So what exactly was going on? It turned out that the dry cathode material was so hard and difficult to work with that the calendar rollers themselves were delaminating. And this image gives you a good view of what that would be like. Now, the kind of chrome material that's on the rollers was being ripped off of the face of the calendar rollers themselves. And of course, this was not able to happen and have a dry cathode material that was usable in the batteries. These problems came to a head back in April, and Drew Baglino ended up resigning. He was the SVP of Powertrain and Energy at Tesla. This caused Tesla to approach the technical difficulties in a new manner. That meant that they would need to replace some of the production equipment with more expensive equipment, and this also generated more R&D uncertainties as they needed to adapt to this new equipment. Shortly after that period of time, I started noticing a lot of recycling of 4680 cans on the west side of the 4680 production cell portion of the factory. Also, I noticed a lot of these look like old rolls of dry cathode material being recycled. And if you look closely at the crates, you can see LG Energy Solution markings on the crates. And that's because during this time, Tesla was actually purchasing more expensive cathode material from LG Energy Solutions and a couple of other companies to try to get through this period of technical challenge. However, Tesla has now got to the point where they feel very confident that they have passed the difficult R&D phases. They've got the new equipment installed and running properly, and they are about one step away from achieving the full version of the 4680 battery, and the design for the cathode of the 4680 has been finalized. And that's where the Cybertruck with the message from Bonnie comes into play. Is Tesla is now testing that out, and they are focusing on improving production yield, efficiency, and expanding capacity. They do plan to hit mass production and install the batteries with the dry electrode technology by the end of the year. In fact, at the second quarter meeting, they were suggesting we may see that by the fourth quarter. Now you know why those Cybertruck images that I took last week were so significant, and it spawned a lot of news and excitement around the Tesla community. As always, thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you found this informative and helpful. And as always, thank you very much for your support. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. We'll start off today on the east side above the east parking lot. And right now, because it's early in the morning, employees are arriving for work, and it's going to be a busy day, which we will see later on, especially with vehicle production. But first, let's pull away to the northeast and let's go take a look at what is going on near the die shop and the battery cathode plant, which is just emerging on the bottom left of the screen. Now, there is some interesting developments here today as well. And first, let me bring the drone down and take a look at the materials that are being stored here on the west side. Not a lot of change in the types of materials or those porta potties that are stored here, but at least it's dry, which is a good thing. Now, we'll bring the drone down on the north end. Take a look at this external furnace. Nice low down view of it. And then there's these platforms on this side underneath that cover, which is very obvious to see with this angle. And it looks like some exhaust ports as well. Along the north wall is more of the items that are being stored temporarily until they're installed inside. Now, as we approach the chiller plant for the cathode facility, we can see that it is actually in operation today. In addition to the water that is kind of pooling on the ground floor underneath a lot of the equipment, the oxygen vaporizers are also quite frosty this morning, indicating that they are in work to take the cryogenic oxygen and use the ambient temperature through the vaporizers to get it into a gas form. So this, along with the augmentation pumps and generators, appears to be, at least to some degree, operational. And we've been seeing this over the last week or two. So I think this is a sort of a subtle indication that something has changed within the cathode plant recently, which is pretty cool to imagine what they may be doing in here, especially considering the news about the Dry Cathode Cybertruck that we talked about in the intro. As I pull away to the northeast, I'll bring the drone down. I wanted to take a look at the equipment that's still stored here, including these very shiny steel kind of tubular items, and next to that red and white bridge crane. Still hasn't moved here in quite some time, so I'm still waiting to see it one day move, and then we'll have an idea where it's going to be installed. I'll keep the drone down low. We'll come to the east side, fly up over the cell test laboratory on the left and the brown kind of controlled trailer, and take a look at how relatively clean this entire side is looking right now. The wade pit on the left is mostly empty. The trailer is in place, but not a lot of activity here. Not very much equipment is being stored here on this side either, other than that one clearing. And we see a lot of vehicles that have gone through crash testing recently. And on the wall of the cathode plant, we saw those temporary yellow panels and that opening where there's ductwork coming through to, it looks like maybe a portable air conditioning unit. But this is a great view across this area to the main factory and that overflow lot, which still looks like, even though it's fenced off, it's being used for some vehicles, but not as many as we saw in the past since the multi-level parking garage is operational. We're going to fly up over this concrete batch plant, take a look at the trailers and equipment next to the electrical switch yard, and stop here momentarily. Wanted to see if there was any change in this kind of southeast corner, the open section next to the two transformers. I do believe at some point we're going to see a third transformer installed somewhere here, plus another control white trailer where that temporary fencing is on that underground vault. But that'll be something we'll continue to watch and see if that is true or not. In these underground concrete vaults, we can see that crews have a lot of the wiring laid out onto that kind of that fabric material that helps ease the pulling through the wires through that conduit. So I'll bring the drone up, we'll go over the power lines and take a look at what's going on here near the megapacks and to the south. Formwork rebar and a mud base is definitely in place here today, along with some fences around the concrete vaults and a good view of some of the conduits that come into those vaults as well. There's 4 sets of risers for electrical components, something that will be installed here, and that'll be something we continue to watch. Crews are getting ready to pull more cables through in the upper left of the screen. As I turn back towards Giga Texas, we'll fly along this section and look at this kind of intersection or junction of where the conduit heads off to the north and then heads off to the south here towards the north part of the casting machine structure. And as we go over Tesla Road and this landscape section, you can see where all of that conduit goes through the ground and the road surfaces with that new paving. I'm going to come up and start on the roof section here today. I wanted to look at the ducted fans and ventilation units. Also along the parapet wall, you can see that racking system and some similar kind of those angled ducting that goes from that rack down into the roof. We've seen that on the south end as well. It looks like there's going to be 4 here, which matches the 4 on the south end. And you can see how it runs along the entire length of the parapet wall. There's also these pipes that extend from the parapet wall over to where the workers are doing some, I don't know, either inspection or additional work here. You can see the open door into that ducting. And they have this kind of brown or black material on the ground laid out for maybe protecting of the surface for whatever work they're going to be doing. So interesting to see that that continues to get some level of additional work over time. Great view along the parapet wall of that rack mount system with some of the cabling and the pipes. And this is where all of that wire system will go from the conduit on the north all the way to the south for the supercomputer cluster. A good view of the temporary parking lot with all of the vehicles and are stored over there today. Some of them are Cybertrucks that are new, and then others are employee vehicles getting charged. Good look at the ground section underneath the drone, still waiting for plumbing and concrete. And as we pass the power tower, we're going to get close to the baghouse filtration plant where there is a lot of activity. Some of it is the materials and equipment deliveries on the ground, some ducts, some looks like valve units, and some other kind of openings, almost like funnel type openings. Some are square, some are round. We also get a good look at the kind of the walkways along the south end of the assembled filtration and air inlet units, and additional look at some pipes and some steel materials that have been delivered as well. Now there are mounts on the ground, those steel kind of I don't know, loop mounts that the workers are next to, and we also see some additional equipment and fan units next to where that tank has been installed. Now I'm going to come back over the power lines, keep it on a zoom. Wanted to show you the work that the crews are doing right now. They are installing these kind of semicircular mounts for pipe work. And this is a good view of how that's going to look. It looks like there's 2 levels of this, and I would expect to see the ductwork on the ground attached to these extending across the galvanized steel structure once it is completed. And as I zoom back out, it's a good overall view of all of the activity here at this filtration unit and how it is looking today. Also, many castings along the berm, some on the ground, some in the rack mounts. And we also see work on the ground level here where the additional concrete's been pulled up, the new receiving door that's been cut into the wall, the formwork, and now rebar along this entire section. It looks like that middle section that's kind of got that raised gravel mix is going to be a slightly different level, maybe with some walls around that section. So I'm going to turn the drone back and give you a ground level view of that work on the east side. And while we're doing this, is also a good view of the castings and rack mounts that are here on the north side of casting. So here we go as a good view on the ground level of how this section is looking. As I mentioned, that rectangular center section, which is slightly raised, looks like it's going to have raised walls around that portion. And then, of course, concrete aprons where the screw-type piers have been installed. As I pull away, another look at the castings and rack mounts on this side of the factory, and also those 3 kind of plastic, black plastic items against the wall. Those are new doorways that have been cut into the wall. And it looks like some white, almost like tank units next to the castings being assembled. On the north side here, where the new 3 receiving doors are located under that temporary kind of roof scaffolding. Next to it, we see the pipework that is being assembled and moved inside. Several valves have been attached to these items as well, and some, it looks like T intersections or junctions on the pipes. So this is continuing to have this work installed on the inside of the north part of the casting machine structure. As we fly across the north part of the paint shop and also the plastics manufacturing section, this is a good look at this northwest corner where the 4680 battery cells are produced. And from what we discussed in the intro, you have a pretty good idea of some of the exciting changes that are going on inside. So let's fly around this part of the factory and we'll resume the narration momentarily. I want to stop right here, zoom in, and show you that Dry Cathode Cybertruck is still here at Giga Texas today, parked next to the west part of the 4680 battery cell structure. And this is also where it was when I took the photo on the 26th that Bonne Eggleston responded to. So here's a good closer-in view, a little higher resolution of what that Cybertruck looks like with the dry electrode, or the dry cathode process underway and in testing. So anyway, I was pretty glad to see that here again today. I also wanted to show you this area next to this kind of blue dumpster. This is where we talked in the intro about where the cans for the 4680 have been recycled, and we also saw other materials back in May and in June. Does not look like there's much recycling going on anymore, just a lot of equipment deliveries today. This clearing with the temporary fences, the scaffolding, the green temporary walls, and the concrete cutout has not changed in a while. On the left, that red and black item, it looks like that's for temporary fire water loop support while this work is underway. The factory exit point for the Model Ys is very busy today. As I've mentioned previously, the end-of-line functions have moved to the west side. This is basically where they exit. They are then driven over with drivers to that west side facility for additional final processing. As we get closer to the main entrance, two things I want to stop and show you. First, the ongoing and never-ending effort to clean the stone glass trapezoid is underway again today, and that is definitely a full-time job. We also see this nice display of a Cybertruck next to the graffiti trailer, and if you look closely, that graffiti is also showing the main entrance to Giga Texas. So pretty cool that they have that display here by the main entrance. So let's cross over the highway and let's take a look what is going on here next to the end-of-line facility and the outbound lot. Many Cybertrucks are lined up already to enter into the building and do the processing and exit on the south end where the superchargers are. We also see some of those Model Ys that have been driven over arriving. They go in through that third door and do their processing here as well. And a good look at the north part of the outbound lot, the number of Cybertrucks and Model Ys stored temporarily. The main outbound lot with the trucks that pick them up is, I'd say, maybe a quarter busy today from what we've seen in the past. The South Superchargers is about 50% busy this morning at the time of the flight. And as I maneuver the drone around, we can see some of the tents that are also used for that final checkouts and preparation for shipping. So as a good view looking to the north across the end-of-line facility and the activity here on the south end. I did notice this front end loader is bringing more of the light posts. These were stored on that southwest material staging yard. This entire dirt area has already been pre-wired for lights. So this may be an indication that we'll see the asphalt being put down here in the near future. As I pull away to the Boring Company tunnel site, there are some significant changes here that I want to show you. First, a good overall view of how the site looks today after it's been mostly cleaned up. We see some of the liners on the bottom of the screen for the drivable surface roadway on the interior of the tunnel, and some other materials plus some of the wooden shoring. As I maneuver the drone in closer, one thing is very evident is the drivable surface has been completed to this part of the tunnel now. This gives you a very good idea of what this looks like. The worker gives you a good idea of scale, and it looks like 4 of those panels in is one of those access points, and that will continue on the ground floor all the way through. That allows workers to get into the pipe work that is underneath that road surface. So anyway, some more progress, and I was able to see that there was some activity on the south extension inside where the other end of the tunnel is. So I think that the roadway surface is now essentially complete. So now we're going to see what the end of it looks like so that they can begin the Cybertruck travel through the tunnel from the factory over to this side and then to the outbound lot. So a great overall view looking to the south over the Boring Company site. Production is busy with the Cybertrucks today. We see a lot of them stored here next to the trailer, the exit point on the left of the building, and a long line of them along the road here on the west side. They also have parking placards put along this fence. So this indicates that we will probably see more of the Cybertruck stored here, at least in a temporary basis until things change here again. Looking back at the south extension is a good look at some of the trench work that is going on the ground floor under this mezzanine, and some of the work on the mezzanine itself, some of the interior walls, and work on that perimeter grade beam to extend that to the north. A lot of the ductwork and other equipment on the ground floor for installation. And as I bring the drone up a little higher, where we will see pipe work, the water cooling pipes that go through the upper left-hand portion of the screen and that part of the factory, and some of the temporary pumps and systems that are next to the mezzanine. This yellow crane is a big indication that we will probably start seeing glass reinstalled on this side of the factory very soon. And we also get a look at more earthwork on this southwest corner. And interestingly enough, the temporary road that we saw being installed is now covered over with dirt, and they are continuing to do more of the earthwork all the way down to this kind of wall in front of the cyber berm. In fact, directly underneath this area and this wall is essentially the manifold system that allows water to come in. It's treated and filtered, and it comes into the cyber pond. A good look at the southwest corner and that opening, and here is one of the 3 tunnels. They have the formwork, they're installing the rebar, and on the right hand side of the screen we see more of those large forms to make the tunnel structure, and we'll see the center one. It gives us an idea what that looks like. But nice view across this area and that southwest corner of how it looks. Much of the rebar cages under prefabrication stored here, and again those forms. And this is a good look at the tunnel with the forms removed, the concrete walls are poured, and we can see how it's got this angled down portion closest to the silt fence and the cyber pond. And I think that the other 2 will look very similar. They're getting ready to do the roof structure, and then the grade will be raised to fill in and make this all level. This tunnel will be very similar once it is completed. Looks like they are doing formwork and also rolling out some membranes along the top where we can see the screw type pier tops as well. So rebar will be going in here, and then that will replicate what we saw with that center tunnel. The southeast corner has been cleaned up quite a lot. There's not a lot of materials or equipment here. The dirt being spread around and filling in the trenches for the water pipes is definitely underway. As I take advantage of our altitude and location, I'll give you a zoom in, and we can see where the Manifolds for the water pipes are coming up out of the ground with those kind of that valves. And here on the second floor, more look at the interior walls and some of the pipe work that is being installed, along with many of the equipment items that are being unpacked. And a good view of the multi-level parking garage between the plant on the right and the extension on the left. Conduit being installed on the left of this image, and a great view of those brown large water pipes and the manifold that's being installed. In addition to that, some pipes are being put onto those semicircular mounted concrete slabs on the ground floor. I'll give you a closer look at that here in a moment. I wanted to also look in at the work that's going on the roof. In fact, in here, what we see is crews building in a fire break, and then they will be tying this together to seal with the original exterior wall, that concrete wall that is stained white right now. So this will finish the bridging of the gap between the extension and the original building and make sure it's completely watertight. So good close-in views here of the work that is underway to make that happen. While we are here, I wanted to also take a look at this gray center section, which is directly above the supercomputer cluster, and also the conduit on the cable system that goes along the parapet wall to that section, the gray section. That's the continuation of what we saw at the north end and where all the wires will come through. Here's a look into the east side of the factory and the 4 large tanks that are being rapidly encased into the building. Some of the work that's going on the second floor, the cooling plant itself, and all of the assembly of electronics and equipment on the ground floor. As I pull away, I wanted to show you the line pond once more, how it looks. On the left-hand side of the screen, we see small trenching. I think that's going to be part of either a drain or a fill inlet coming in from the extension of the building and or the cooling plant. So as I bring the drone up on the south side a little higher, it's a great view of what Giga Texas looks like from this vantage point. Also the West Support Facility and Inline on the left and the multi-level parking garage on the right. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great week.